Good today, like 6 to 10 a.m., where we go extra for you.
Produced by the real Joe Cruz. And your warm and intelligent host, Ray Gibson.
It's the Gibson stream of consciousness. All the players and all the games with cameos and calls from the most interesting people like you. We'll see and hear you right here on your talk radio superstation. This is The Point.
The Ray Gibson Show was filmed before a live Facebook audience.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Debate night in Georgia. I'm Mary Corsetti, Fox News. Incumbent Republican Senator Kelly Loeffler facing off against Democratic challenger Raphael Warnock on Sunday. Loeffler talking about her health care plan.
I'm going to continue to fight for every single Georgian to have the freedoms and the opportunities that they deserve and not be crushed by big government that would have government-mandated health care, that would provide free health care for illegal immigrants, that would raise their taxes to pay for government health care, and that would bankrupt Medicare.
Warnock criticizing Loeffler for her attempts to undermine the legitimacy of the presidential election without any credible evidence of election fraud.
Kelly Loeffler continues to cast doubt on an American democratic election. It's time to put this behind us and get focused on the concerns of ordinary people. While she's playing political games, trying to represent somebody who doesn't live in Georgia, Georgians are wondering when are they going to get some COVID-19 relief. You can't tell the difference between Washington back rooms and corporate boardrooms. My opponent represents the worst of that kind of problem.
Incumbent Republican Senator David Perdue was supposed to face off against his Democratic challenger Jon Ossoff Sunday evening, but Perdue backed out of the debate. Meanwhile, President Trump tweeting Sunday that his attorney, Rudy Giuliani, has tested positive for the coronavirus. The 76-year-old former New York mayor has traveled extensively to battleground states challenging election results on behalf of the president.
Wisconsin is a lawsuit where Wisconsin has a very strict absentee ballot. And it basically says if you don't have an application for the ballot doesn't count. And there are some 50 or 60,000 ballots without applications. They would have to be thrown out, and that would change the election.
Giuliani on Fox's Sunday Morning Futures discussing the current legal battle in Wisconsin. America is listening to Fox News.
Half a day. This is Claire Manglona from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
Are you fed up with those long bank lines? Do you wish you had a bank who gave you faster service? Well, by enrolling in Bank Pacific's new mobile app, you don't even need to wait in line. But even if you do want to come down in person, we're more than happy to see your smiling face, as long as you have a mask. Because our service is so good, we don't believe in lines. Because for 66 years, we've been making sure you get the service you deserve. Because where others put branches, we place roots. And we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
Iran vows revenge after an important Iranian figure was killed.
Tension remains in the Persian Gulf, with Iran vowing a response to last month's killing of a top nuclear scientist. Israel is warning its citizens against travel to the Gulf over fears that Iran could attack the UAE or Bahrain, countries that have normalized ties with Israel. Now, last week, the U.S. deployed the USS Nimitz aircraft carrier and its strike group to the Gulf in an effort to deter Iran from targeting the U.S. or its allies. As the Islamic Republic's nuclear aspirations operations do continue, so does its proxy action across the Middle East. Last year, Iran routinely targeted oil tankers operating in the area, adding to ongoing provocative activity amid heavy U.S. sanctions.
Fox's Trey Yingst. And as cases of COVID-19 continue to soar nationwide and more states are tightening restrictions, some business owners are speaking out or even defying lockdown mandates.
We have pivoted right away. We went right to virtual. However, that was not how we planned to have our main business. We've spent over $125,000 alone just in the remodel of our space that had been empty for 14 years.
DeLee Dalio, co-owner of Switch Fitness in Elk Grove, speaking on America's Newsroom. Meanwhile, the co-owner of a Staten Island bar that has continued to serve customers in violation of COVID-19 restrictions was arrested again on Saturday night.
Police say Danny Presti, the co-owner of Mac's Public House, was taken into custody after police say he allegedly rammed his car into a sheriff's deputy. The deputy was taken to the hospital for injuries sustained when he was thrown onto the hood of Presti's car. The incident happening shortly after Mac's closed for the night. Mac's has declared itself an autonomous zone and remained open despite a stack of fines, a shutdown order by the state health department, and the revocation of its liquor license. Last Tuesday, Mac's was raided and Presti was arrested the first time. The bar has continued to serve customers food and drink indoors throughout the week, despite strict COVID-19 restrictions limiting them to takeout only.
Fox's Ted Lindner. I'm Mary Corsetti, and this is Fox News.
Hafa I'm Chelsea Nicholas, and I'm the co-chair for this year's G is for Giving, as well as a proud alumna of the University of Guam. G is for Giving is an annual campaign that kicks off on the Tuesday following Thanksgiving and runs through the end of the year. Known as Giving Tuesday, it is an international day of giving, and this year's theme is Weaving Community. On Guam, we know a little something about weaving community, as we're all intertwined and interconnected in the spirit of Inafamalik. When one of us thrives, the island thrives. This is why I support G is for Giving's mission to support scholarships, programs, and research. As an alumna, I know how difficult it is to balance going to school and worrying about how you're going to pay for school. In these uncertain times, students are even more at risk because of economic hardship beyond their control. G is for Giving aims to bridge that gap and take away at least some of the burden. For more information on how you can give, visit give.uog.edu or call the UOG Endowment Foundation at 735-2957. Have a happy and safe holiday.
Chili's has a dinner deal you can't miss. Enjoy a tasty appetizer, 2 bottomless Coca-Cola beverages, and 2 mouth-watering entrees, all for just $35. Treat yourself to entree options like our fall-off-the-bone baby back ribs, personal fajita with chicken, or the ultimate bacon burger. Chili's 2 for $35. Available daily from 3 p.m. to closing for patio dining or takeout. Chili's is located on the 2nd floor of the Tuman Sands Plaza. Call 648-7377 to place your takeout order today. With Chili's, you can still savor the moment at home.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Security Title, providing solutions for complex real estate transactions. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's how Tall Tales starts every day, especially on Mondays, which is our favorite day of the week here around here on Tall Tales, because it means we got a whole week to talk to and listen to the tailgaters and our international radio listening audience. What could possibly be better than that? So I'm the shopkeeper here. I'm Bob. My pronouns are he, his, and him. I don't put up with very much PCBS here on Tall Tales, a constitutional, conservative-oriented radio program that happens to be the top-rated FM talk show in the afternoon in the entire Western Pacific. We've worked hard to get that rating, and we work hard to keep it. So I'm really glad to have all of you tailgaters with me out there as we start off another voyage on the good ship Tall Tales. So I'm going to go straight to Zemi Ikotny. And as you know, that's where I beat up on the Daily News for running local editorials. I usually give a fair amount of praise to the Post because they do run local editorials, and usually they're good. I got my blue pencil here. I mark up editorials when I find mistakes, which is often. And at the end of the evaluation, I'll give the coveted blue star to the better of the two editorials, which hasn't been the Daily News for months. Here's today's offering in the Daily News. It's from Michael Steele, the former chairman of the Republican National Committee and a senior advisor to the Lincoln Project. Yeah. So Michael Steele used to rate pretty high in my book because Michael Steele actually came out here when he was the chairman of the Republican National Committee. We had a little soiree down at the Hilton. I was there. I had a chance to shake and howdy with Michael, and I thought he was a pretty good guy. But when he went over to the dark side there with the Lincoln Project, I lost a lot of respect for Michael. But here's what Michael says. Americans turned out for the 2020 elections in numbers not seen in over 100 years. Voters made a plan and found a way to make their voices heard. The process should not have been so difficult for so many. The American people are demanding change, investments in secure polling places, technologies, easier voter registration, and an end to unfair voter file purges, and the abandonment of partisan gerrymandering that helps too many incumbents avoid answering for their actions because they unfairly draw districts in their own favor. Well, that only happens when the Democrats control state legislatures. When the Republicans are in control, it couldn't be more fair. Fortunately, the House of Representatives has already passed a bill that would fix some of these problems. H.R. 1, the For the People Act, deserves a hearing in the Senate and presidential signature. But since elections still only take place every few years, Congress must also enact legislation to strengthen the systems that hold the government accountable on a daily basis. And while H.R. 1 does include some ethics reforms, it does not go far enough to shore up our democracy. Once broken, norms alone will not constrain future administrations or deter greed and corruption at the highest levels. Only new transparency. All right, Michael. Transparency, the T word, tall tales, transparency, all the good words start with T. Only new transparency and accountability legislation with strict loophole-free enforcement provisions can regain citizens' trust. The Protecting Our Democracy Act, which has been endorsed by nonpartisan good government groups like the Project on Government Oversight, would enact reforms to remedy the accountability gaps exposed over the last few years. The bill includes stronger protections for whistleblowers and inspectors general, bolstered congressional oversight powers, and improved ethics rules. It requires urgent action from Congress. Trustworthy government is not a Republican or a Democrat issue. It's certainly not a Democrat issue. Regardless of who wins control, the Senate, the first act of the next Congress must be to fix our democracy. This means ensuring the actions of public officials happen in the full light of day before an American citizenry empowered by free, fair, and secure and open elections. Well, I told you how to fix it. No more of this mail-in ballot. Absentee voting for those who can't make it to the polls. Everybody else goes to the polls. We've learned a hard lesson here with all the fancy stuff. It's time to go back to basics. As far as transparency is concerned, when government is completely transparent, the people will make sure that public officials are held accountable. And I'm going to get, that's, really the root of today's card, transparency and the people's willingness to fix things that get out of whack. Well, not a bad editorial here, of course, written by Michael Steele, who once upon a time was a pretty good guy. Maybe he'll reform after the election's over.
He got stuck in Never Trumperville.
He did indeed.
Never got out.
Never got out. Okay, now we go to the Post. And the Post has, in the last couple of times, instead of writing editorials, has gotten into the feel-good business. Motivational speeches. Yeah, motivational speeches to try to help us feel good. If government projections hold true, nearly 29,000 Guam residents will have access to the Wuhan virus vaccine by next month. That means about 18% of island residents will be able to get Wuhan virus shots if they choose over the next several weeks. The federal government last week projected more than 100 million Americans will have access to the vaccine toward the end of March. With that number, Guam will get more allocations. For our island to get on the path to, here's where I use my blue pencil, for Island to get on the path to normalcy. You know, when you're just whacking out a letter or whacking out an email to your drinking buddy, just carpentry work is good enough. You get a hammer and nails and you nail the boards together. But when you're doing an editorial, that's not carpentry. That's cabinet work. Every joint must be exactly precise. Every screw must be countersunk and filled and sanded. The finish has got to shine like a mirror. When you throw normalcy in there, it's not a bad word. It's not like ain't, but it just shows lack of care on the part of the author. So instead of cabinet work here, I'm just looking at some rough cabinet work, rough carpentry. Not good.
Just a bunch of boxes.
Exactly.
But that's a nice analogy.
Yeah.
Cabinetry is difficult.
Yes. And it shows. If you have something that's made by a good cabinet maker, it's worth a whole lot more than just knocking together some boards with a hammer and nails. Okay, not everyone agrees with this, as you were. For Ireland to get back on a path to, I'm going to correct it here, to normality, both health-wise and in terms of trying to rebound from the Wuhan virus pandemic's financial fallout, the early release of the vaccine gives hope. There you go, hope. Not everyone agrees with this, and there will always be naysayers for every topic. But for those whose lives are on the line or at a greater risk of getting Wuhan virus and dying, not to mention livelihoods that are being eroded to the point of near bankruptcy, the development that Wuhan virus immunization could start in weeks does offer something to be optimistic about. While everyone else getting a Wuhan virus shot is the answer, those who want to get immunized to stop this pandemic will have something to look forward to. It's much better than looking at a long tunnel and not seeing light. Hope and optimism have been scarce these days, not only on our island, but in the nation and the world as well. The holiday season has been unmerry for many as the economic safety nets funded by the federal government and distributed on Guam by our local government are about to run out of cash unless the lame duck Congress and the exiting president put their differences aside in the interest of those facing a financial crash. Without pandemic relief, the scenario President-elect Joe Biden has said will be bleak. Just President Joe Biden makes the scenario pretty bleak. I'm not alone in saying this situation is urgent. If we don't act now, the future will be very bleak, Biden said Friday, adding, quote, Americans need help, and they need it now, and needed more to come nearly early next year. Yeah, get a plug in for Joe Biden. Unemployment assistance will stop. Eviction suspension will be lifted. Federal funding for the local government response to the pandemic will wind down. And even a Trump official is not oblivious to the deeper crisis ahead. There's a train wreck coming, folks, okay? Trump's trade advisor, Peter Navarro, told reporters Friday, delivering a message to Congress. The Washington Post reported, and it's your job to flip the switches so the trains don't hit. Mark Zandi, chief economist at Moody's Analytics, sort of a moody fellow, this Zandi, said the troubling jobs report and raging pandemic could encourage lawmakers to move quickly on the stimulus, even if it means Democrats accepting a smaller than desired deal. You've got tens of millions of Americans who are in a panic mode. Given the financial hit and blows to these households, they need help now. So sooner is more important than bigger at this point. On Guam, island experts have pointed out the high jobless rate on Guam, higher than stateside rates because of our reliance on tourism. Economic pundits in the states are concerned that U.S. jobs are not increasing as fast as expected. The country added 245,000 jobs in November, the slowest month of growth since spring. For Guam, the problem is dire. We're stuck with two industries, one, tourism, bringing in near zero numbers at this point, and federal defense spending, which offers mixed benefits for Guam because a number of the military contractors are not from Guam, and a number of them rely on imported labor. Tourist arrivals on Guam have been seen a 99% monthly decrease. David John of ASC Trust, a retirement management firm, described 2020 as, quote, the year from hell. Wow. David John ought to be a talk show host with imagery like that.
I couldn't find that on the Chinese calendar. The year of the what?
The year of the rat, the cow, the rat, yeah.
The year of hell?
The year from hell. But added the creation and distribution of Wuhan virus vaccines bode well for 2021. Guam needs brakes to keep from crashing early next year. The Wuhan virus vaccine offers a chance to put a brake to the pandemic. Once our health concerns ease, we can also focus on climbing out of our financial stumbles. We still need the federal government's help. We can also hope that the financial lifeline will materialize, even if it means waiting for a new administration in the White House and the next set of U.S. lawmakers. Now, here it comes. Here's the purpose of this whole editorial. We have to have hope. Swirling in negativity will only cause us to spiral further downward. So instead of calling this the editorial page, it ought to be called the psychology page, right? I wish I had my pipe here. Mr. Patient, what you need is hope. You have to have hope here. If you don't have hope, you'll just be swirling downward. You'll be spiraling further downward. Yeah, very good. Thank you, Guam Daily Post, for a counseling session instead of an editorial. If I want to have hope, I'll have hope. I don't need somebody at the newspaper to tell me to have hope. I guess I told him, Jose. Okay, from there we go to the card. And the top item on the card is Tall Tales versus CCU. Yeah. Tall,
good.
Tall Tales. And here's my program notes. Tall Tales takes on the CCU again for playing Hide the Ball, again with a performance evaluation of Kelly Clark. Second item on the card, Joe San Augustine versus Separation of Powers. Joe San Augustine once again shows that a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Joe opposed the elimination of non-contributory lifetime pensions for governors and lieutenant governors, but co-sponsored a bill to micromanage the Attorney General. So here's what we had. Tello, I hope it's okay if I mention her name, I didn't have permission, introduced a bill that there's a statute in the books that sets up a pension for governors and lieutenant governors, sets up the mechanics and exactly how it's supposed to work, where the money comes from, etc. She repealed that entire portion of the law, the whole thing. So the way I read it, the day that law were to become effective, the pensions for Ray Tenorio and Eddie Calvo and Paul Calvo and Felix Kamau, everybody who's been governor or lieutenant governor stops. Now, I read the committee report, and Tello was assuring everybody this only applied prospectively, telling me that Tello forgot to read her own bill. So, well, I'll come back to this when we get into it.
It's not very good teleworking.
Yeah, okay, into this. So anyhow, Joe San Augustine said in the committee report, or in the newspaper story, said he was against it because it violated separation of powers. So the legislature creates a pension. The legislature can abolish the pension. There's no separation of powers to mention there. But Joe San Augustine wants to fine the Attorney General $100 if he doesn't cough up any opinion or memorandum that a member of the legislature asked for if it's not in the legislature's hands in 10 days. Clearly, separation of powers. The Attorney General's got no business giving legal advice to the legislature. It's another branch.
Besides, he works for the governor.
Well, this one does, yeah. Okay. And then next item on the card is BLM versus White Coats. Oh, wait a minute. I got another one here. On Friday, we revisited Clint and Adrian's cheap shot as seen through the eyes of the former governor. Today, GVB chimes in. So we're going to be talking, everybody that want to talk about marijuana, that'll be the third item on the card. So be patient. We'll get there. I'm sure our Fred will have something to say. Next item on the card, our local social justice warriors, the White Coats for Black Lives Matter folks, are educated again in an item called Black Lives Matter versus White Coats. And then lefties used to be champions for free speech, but now they oppose it. That's an item called the left versus free speech. And then finally, Cornell versus English. English is a microaggression for the left. Yeah. Perhaps it could be described as the language spoken by immigrants migrating from the British Isles. Sort of like what CNN did with the vaccination for cervical cancer. Anyone with a cervix might want to get it, right? Okay, we got a break coming up here. Let's take a short break and we'll come back to the calendar.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guam Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
It's time to mix things up at Subway. Come in and get Subway's new barbecue chicken sandwich. Tender chicken strips topped with generous portions of sweet barbecue sauce.
Oh, yeah.
Add on crisp lettuce, onions, and tangy pickles on your favorite freshly baked bread. Perfect to satisfy just about anyone's flavor craving. It's Subway's new barbecue chicken sandwich, available for a limited time only, so try it today. At Subway, make it what you want.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, so here we are back with the card. I'm going to have Jose give a little speech, though, about the What's Up app that can give you instant or immediate access to the point, no matter where you are.
It's worldwide, Bob. You can get the app or download it from the Apple App Store if you own an Apple iOS device. And you could also find it on Google Play for your Android device. And the name of the app is 93.3 The Point. I don't know about Android because I don't use the Android, but on the Apple app, the icon is black,
yeah.
But it works very well. And also, you know, if you listen into Ray Gibson's show this morning, he added another feature, which is an alarm clock feature, so you could wake up to your favorite show or be reminded when Tall Tales comes on.
So I would suggest that you set it for about 15:45 every afternoon.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then in addition to that, there is an icon where you can actually you can snap on it and you can watch Facebook Live. So you can actually watch Tall Tales on that app. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There is also a link to the Tall Tales or Bob Klitzkie YouTube page.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
YouTube. Yeah.
YouTube. Yes.
Yeah. So you could actually watch Tall Tales on that app. It doesn't get any better than that. That app is priceless. And then along the same lines, I mention every day that Tall Tales pops up on Jungle Watch every day. Tim's running a little behind schedule today, so the card and program notes may not pop up until tonight, along with the Facebook video of today's show. And once again, I encourage folks, you tailgaters, to go to Jungle Watch and post comments. You look at, you go to the page where today's show is, it'd probably be the top page in Jungle Watch, and at the bottom there's a blank to insert your comment, and you can sign in as yourself or just about any other way you want to, and you'll be communicating again literally with a worldwide audience there with Jungle Watch. So I encourage everyone to take advantage of that. Okay, back to the card. We've got Tall Tales versus CCU. And there was a story, a front page story in today's Post. No salary adjustments after CCU completes employee evaluations. CCU completed its evaluation of power and water utility general managers, capping a process that encompassed 7 employees in total, which began about 3 weeks prior. Guam Waterworks Authority General Manager Miguel Berdallo achieved a 4.25 out of 5, meaning that he scored slightly higher than the benchmark for exceeding expectations and above satisfactory, according to Commissioner Simon Sanchez. The score given to Guam Power Authority General Manager John Benavente was 4.09, which means he also exceeded expectations and is above satisfactory, Sanchez said. While the heads of the two utilities were rated highly by the commissioners, neither general managers nor any of the other employees evaluated by the commission received salary adjustments. Sanchez said the employees would merit a salary adjustment in better times, but agreed that the timing required, quote, sacrifice in sharing in the challenges presented by the Wuhan virus. We will revisit their situation when the community situation is better. And then there's a listing of salaries here. Annual salaries for GPA and GWA employees evaluated based on available staffing patterns are General Manager Benavente, $225,000. GWA General Manager Miguel Bordallo, $174,900. GPA Legal Counsel D. Graham Botha, $135,000. And here's the one that I'm stuck on. GWA Legal Counsel Kelly Clark, $115,003. The story goes on to say that let's see, with the exception of Taling Taitano, who was not a GWA at the time, this is the first time the employees are being evaluated following the controversial pay raises approved in November of 2018, which I think everyone remembers. The commission at that time did not include current member Michael Limtiaco, discussed pay adjustments during executive session, away from public observation and in violation of the law. Now, the law is super clear about not discussing matters of salary or pay in executive session. But ironically, the two lawyers, $135,000 a year, Graham Botha, and the $115,003 a year, Kelly Clark, sat in that executive session themselves. Now, this is what should have happened. If you can picture the executive session, one of the members says, "Well, okay, we've evaluated everybody. Let's give everybody a raise." And the two lawyers' hands shoot up. No, wait. We can't do that. It's against the law. We've already broken the law. We can't even discuss salary in executive session. Stop. Open the door. Let some fresh air in here. We can't do this. That's what should have happened. That's not what happened. What happened was Kelly Clark was given a salary increase from $115,000 to $140,000 as he sat in this illegal executive session. Now, that is and if you remember what a kerfuffle it created after somebody sent, there was a story in the paper that just very nonchalantly said, well, some raises were given. It was done in executive session, when some smart ass said, you can't do that in executive session, and started some FOIAs, and the whole thing became very well known.
Who was that?
I'll let you fill in the blanks yourself. So, first of all, the CCU attempted to finesse it, but the public auditor came along and said, "Guys, you can't do that. You got to get the money back from those people. It's wrong." And I believe the Attorney General even prosecuted or brought a civil action to deal with it. And then because the public auditor also found some earlier raises that were done in executive session that were wrong. Nice job, counsel. One of the things that lawyers do is, I've mentioned this before, lawyers have toolkits. And a lawyer has several tools in his toolkit. He's got a knife that's so sharp, that you can split hairs with it. He's got a pocket calculator that has an algorithm in it with which you can calculate how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. Yeah. And there's a pair of dung-colored glasses in that toolkit. I can't use the correct descriptive term, but I think you know what I mean when I say dung-colored glasses. So the lawyer is supposed to put on those dung-colored glasses, and he's supposed to be looking around. He's supposed to be looking way down the road to see any possible thing that can happen, any possible bad thing that can happen. And he's supposed to tell his client, 4 miles, the car, everything's going smooth now, but 4 miles down the road, there's a red light. You got to start thinking about slowing down for that red light. That's a lawyer's job, the dung-colored glasses. Well, apparently the two lawyers for water and power, instead of using their dung-colored glasses, put on rose-colored glasses. Oh, boy, we're going in executive session and we're going to get raises. Doesn't get any better than that. So that's what happened back then. And then the story goes on to say the raises and bonuses for the employees, which have since been rescinded, included a $25,000 bonus for Beneventi, a pay raise from $175 to $190 for Berdalio, a pay raise from $135 to $144,772 for Botha, a pay raise from $115,000 to $140,000 for Clark. Yeah. I guess because maybe the lawyers got those high raises because they knew that the commissioners were doing something wrong by working on salary in executive session. So the two lawyers kept it on the down low. That's why they got those substantial raises. Adjustments were also approved for assistant general managers in addition to rescheduling, in addition to rescinding all the adjustments. All effective employees were to pay back any they may have received. Following reports of the 2018 violation, the Office of Public Accountability conducted an audit of pay raises at the utilities and other agencies. The OPA found several issues with how the CCU had been conducting its pay adjustments, noting that closed-door salary adjustments were common. The CCU also failed to conduct formal performance evaluations for general managers, the audit report stated. The CCU has adopted several changes, including a formal and public evaluation process for general managers, which is right. Who do those guys work for? They work for us. In February, the CCU also reapproved prior decisions on hiring and salary adjustments for certain employees, including the hiring of the general manager, who was granted a $225,000 salary from a salary of $175,000 upon being hired into his permanent position. The purpose of the reapproval was to remedy the defective meetings and finalize salary adjustments in open session. As for GWA, Lemtiaco disclosed that Berdalio, and there's some talk here about some possible conflicts of interest, which I suspect Mark Martinez zoomed in on in the daily paper, and unless he calls, we needn't spend too much time on conflict of interest. Each general manager presented the information on his progress at the respective utility prior to evaluation. Only the general managers were evaluated in public, meaning the lawyers were not evaluated in public. The other employees, the board secretary, respective chief financial officers, and lawyers for each utility were evaluated in executive session. Okay, so in November 2018, a couple lawyers commit colossal blunders that, in the private sector might have been career-ending events. So November 2018, here we are, December 2020, which is 2 years later, the CCU finally gets around to evaluating these guys. I am very curious about how Kelly Clark was evaluated concerning that blunder. That would seem to be the major event in his evaluation. And then, of course, you also remember that Kelly Clark doubled down on the whole matter because I very vigorously asserted, I sent FOIAs and very vigorously asserted the public's right to know what those evaluations that were done in secret actually said. And my request was initially granted. Later on, the commission itself said, no, we're going to answer that request. We're going to publish those evaluations. And when that decision was made, Kelly Clark, the lawyer for the Water Authority, sent me an email. I just happen to have it with me here. And this is what he said. Mr. Klitzkie, it is my understanding you are now in receipt of my personal employee evaluation created by my employer, GWA, for the CCU meeting you incessantly rant about on your radio show. Guilty as charged. I ranted about that more than once and in other public places. The evaluation was released by the CCU, but that wasn't good enough for Kelly Clark. The evaluation was released by the CCU over my objection. Over my objection and against the advice of conflict counsel. Now, these two lawyers, Bassa and Clark, screwed things up so bad that the CCU had to go out and hire another lawyer to deal with them because they had a conflict in dealing with themselves. So I'm really curious as to see how the CCU evaluated these two guys, given that gigantic screw-up, and then, my pen pal here, Kelly Clark.
It's really very sensitive information.
Thank you, Lou. All right. Then Clark goes on to say, although I have not seen that information, he hasn't seen the evaluation himself, your republication of any portion of what I consider my private information is an egregious offense to me. So he worked for the CCU. He's an at-will employee working for the CCU. They do a performance evaluation, and he sees it as his private information. No! Yeah, his private information. All you people out there that pay money, that pay your water bills every month, yeah, just keep moving. There's nothing to see here. Pay no attention to that man with the ESQ behind his name. Yeah. Then Clark goes on to say this. I am telling you now that if you speak in public of or otherwise release any of that information, which is public, in his own email, he knows is public, I will sue you. After having been put on notice of the facts of this matter, you proceed, as you have with several of the other employees of GWA and GPA. It will be an action on your part that is clearly malicious. and intended only to boost the dismal ratings of your blood sport inspired radio show. So here we have a lawyer that sends an email. I am a ratepayer. I'm a lot of things. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a citizen. I'm a ratepayer. I'm, of course, a celebrity, being the host of Tall Tales and all. I'm a talk show host, but I am a ratepayer. So he sends this threatening letter to a ratepayer discussing CCU business in that email with me. What the CCU did, what he didn't like, etc. And then he threatens, he says, I'm going to sue you. So he not only commits the blunder of the century by sitting in that executive session where he got a good pay raise, he doubles down by sending this email. Now, wouldn't you think that his employers might take a dim view of this, even if they're not tailgaters? So that's Kelly Clark's letter. So the CCU evaluated Clark and Botha, and okay, let's take a short break here, and I'll come back to the CCU after that short.
Rolling sound, quiet, and action.
The Ray Gibson Show, starring Senator Montesilva Tyron as the news anchor.
I'm Montesilva Tyron, and I'll have your local news every morning. Life moves pretty fast, so stay with us to stay informed right here on The Point.
Also starring Jerry Roberts as the Better Business Training Guru.
Get out there and do something good today, like listen to us Monday through Friday, 6 to 10 a.m., where we go extra for you.
Produced by the real Joe Cruz. And your warm and intelligent host, Ray Gibson.
It's the Gibson Stream of Consciousness. All the players and all the games with cameos and calls from the most interesting people like you. We'll see and hear you right here on your talk radio superstation. This is The Point.
The Ray Gibson Show was filmed before a live Facebook audience. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and Mezcla Dos are open for takeout and delivery services. More details, call the Hagåtña location at 479-2652 or Mezcla Dos Upper Tumon at 646-6295. Get your Mezcla fix at the comfort of your home.
Okay, here we are. We got about 9 minutes till the big halftime show. So Clark was one of the participants in that executive session where he got a good-sized salary increase. Showed his skill as a letter writer. The Attorney General says, "You guys got to pay that back, right?" So let's see, his salary increase. His salary increase put an extra $5,027.42 in his pocket before he got caught. So he has to pay that back, roughly about $5,000. So this, the CCU really takes a hard line on all this, and this is again part of the whole picture. Is the CCU just saying, well, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's kind of let it go. Yeah, they got to pay it back. So what did Clark sign up for? $25 a payday. $25 a payday. So at $25 a payday, to pay back the $5,027 of the illegal raise that he has to take responsibility for, it's going to take 193 pay periods, or 7.5 years for him to pay back that money. Way to work, CCU. Look out for the ratepayers.
So he still got the raise.
In effect. because he's paying it back $25 a payday. So he's got a huge chunk of money there.
Well, I see some legislation on the line here.
Well, and that's what prompted the bill that I introduced for what's his name, Clint, that passed, and the governor vetoed it because she was worried that they wouldn't be able to lower government of Guam salaries. Where's Real Joe on that one? Yeah, we're always lowering government of Guam salaries, right? Yeah. So, you just can't stop talking about this. I can't stop talking about it. He's in the session. He should have advised not to do it in the executive session. He takes the raise. When he gets caught, he says, I'm only going to pay it back $25 a payday. Besides that, the CCU should have never released my evaluation. And besides that, if a certain person talks about it, I mean, maybe this was the inspiration for Tello. It's a public document. And he says, if I talk about it, he is going to sue me. So it's good. Every agency should have counsel on board. So if any ratepayer pisses them off, the counsel can go out and sue the ratepayer for what he says. That is certainly the mark of good government. Way to go on that one, CCU. So back to this, back to the story here. Only general managers were evaluated in public. The other employees, the board secretary, the respective chief financial officer, and the lawyers for each utility were evaluated in executive session. So I think there's a real good possibility that council once again guided the CCU into an impermissible executive session. And here's the last line in this story that ran in the Post. Former Senator Robert Klitzkie has submitted a Sunshine Act request for documents pertaining to GWA legal counsel Kelly Clark. Yeah, I sent that off last week. And guess what happened? It was denied. For insufficient reason, for lots of reasons. And I've already served them a notice of violation, which I will comment on when it comes up. But this is what I asked for. The performance evaluation of Kelly Clark, ESQ, counsel to the GWA. 2, personnel actions, often referred to as GG1s, for Clark from November 27, 2018 to today. That was November 29. 3, minutes of all meetings and work sessions where Clark's performance in November 27 were discussed. Now, you would have thought that what he did would have been discussed on more than one occasion. I mean, to me, it's really serious. And 4, minutes of all meetings and work sessions where Clark's letter to me was discussed. Now, once again, unless the CCU sits back and says, we're really glad that Kelly Clark sent that letter to Klitzkie over there at Tall Tale. We don't like the way he behaves on the radio, so, yeah, it was a good thing that he did. Not. You would have thought that when their legal counsel went off the rails, that would have been discussed at least once in some kind of a meeting or session or whatever. But they denied all of these things, and the reason for the denial was because, I hope I have that with me. Yeah, they said that they were not releasable pursuant to 5 GCA 10108. And we hear this one all the time. We can't let you have that. It's a personnel matter. Yeah. Well, here's what the law actually says. 5 GCA section 108. limitation on right of inspection, except as provided in Section 10109 of this chapter. Nothing in this chapter shall be construed to require disclosure of records that are any of the following: personnel, medical, or similar files, the disclosure of which would constitute an unwarranted information as your invasion of personal privacy. Now notice, listen carefully here. Nothing in this chapter shall be construed to require disclosure of those records. Do you hear the word prohibit in there anywhere? Do you hear the word forbid? No. So there's nothing in 5 GCA 108 that says you can't let the people have those records. It says you don't have to. Not you can't, but you don't have to. Big, big difference. So, yeah, okay, let's take a short break, a 7-minute break for the halftime show, and we'll come back to this.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Well, the pullback of U.S. troops in Afghanistan is underway.
The aim is to go from 5,000 U.S. troops to 2,500 by mid-January. President Trump had hoped to get all U.S. troops home by Christmas. That won't be possible. But there were 13,000 troops here at the beginning of the year. This has been heavily criticized by many people. But peace talks between the Afghan government and the Taliban are ongoing in Doha. In the last couple of weeks, Secretary Pompeo was there urging for a political settlement. That being said, the big question is whether or not the Taliban will renounce al-Qaeda. There is evidence to suggest that al-Qaeda leadership is still being harbored in Taliban-controlled areas. And of course, the main purpose of the U.S. intervention here was to prevent this country being used to launch attacks against the West. Without that security guarantee, many people feel that this is just too early to be leaving.
Fox's Benjamin Hall. Meanwhile, a church in Colorado and its pastor are petitioning the Supreme Court, seeking an injunction against the state's COVID-19 restrictions that put a 50-person cap on houses of worship. That petition, filed by the High Plains Harvest Church and its pastor, Mark Hodeling.
I can go to Lowe's down the street and, there's 300 people just in the garden section. I can get on an airplane. There's 100 people or whatever in a tube, a metal tube confined for multiple hours, yet I can't have more than 50 people.
Pastor Hodeling speaking on America's Newsroom. And congressional leaders facing a deadline to fund the federal government and avoid a government shutdown.
Congressional leaders are negotiating a spending bill to keep the federal government running through much of next year. Aides are also discussing a one-week funding bill in case they fail to reach an agreement by Friday's deadline. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says she and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell have also agreed to combine this annual government spending bill with another coronavirus economic package. The foundation for these negotiations is a more than $900 billion framework a bipartisan group of House and Senate members released last week.
Fox's Rich Edson. I'm Mary Corsetti, and this is Fox News.
Are you fed up with those long bank lines? You wish you had a bank who gave you faster service? Well, by enrolling in Bank Pacific's new mobile app, you don't even need to wait in line. But even if you do want to come down in person, we're more than happy to see your smiling face, as long as you have a mask. Because our service is so good, we don't believe in lines. Because for 66 years, we've been making sure you get the service you deserve. Because where others put branches, we place roots. And we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
Half a day. This is Claire Manglona from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
A heated debate. I'm Mary Corsetti, Fox News. Incumbent Republican Senator Kelly Loeffler debating Democratic challenger Raphael Warnock on Sunday. Warnock criticizing the healthcare system in the U.S.
The politics in Washington has been about the politicians. I'm a pastor. And so when I think about these issues, I think about the people that I've had to stand with in the critical care units while their loved one was dying or between life and death. And not only are they concerned about the sickness, they're wondering how in the world are they going to pay for it.
Meanwhile, incumbent Republican Senator Kelly Loeffler defending herself against accusations that she's a racist.
There's not a racist bone in my body. I have worked to bring communities together my entire life. But this is really terrible coming from someone who has divided people continually. He's called on Americans to repent for their worship of whiteness. He's called Israel an apartheid state.
And incumbent Republican Senator David Perdue declining to debate his Democratic challenger John Ossoff, who spoke on his own Sunday evening. And President Trump speaking at a rally in Georgia Saturday to voice his support for the Republican candidates.
The president was here in Georgia to campaign for Georgia's Republican senators, David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, with the focus on those all-important Senate runoff races. But, of course, President Trump was the star of the show. President Trump commanded hundreds, if not thousands, of excited supporters who stood for hours in chilly temperatures to see and hear what the president had to say in his first rally since his election loss last month. He aired out his personal grievances, but he did get around to Georgia's Senate runoff races, which puts Senators David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler against Democrats John Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock. President Trump encouraged his supporters to get out and vote for the incumbent Republican senators, a move he said would prevent Democrats from stealing another election.
Fox's Charles Watson. America is listening to Fox News.
Rolling sound, quiet, and action.
The Ray Gibson Show. Starring Senator Mona Silva Tyron as the news anchor.
I'm Mona Silva Tyron, and I'll have your local news every morning. Life moves pretty fast, so stay with us to stay informed right here on The Point.
Also starring Jerry Roberts as the Better Business Training Guru.
Get out there and do something good today. Like listen to us Monday through Friday, 6 to 10 a.m., where we go extra for you.
Produced by the real Joe Cruz. And your warm and intelligent host, Ray Gibson.
It's the Gibson Stream of Consciousness. All the players and all the games with cameos and calls from the most interesting people like you. We'll see and hear you right here on your talk radio superstation. This is The Point.
The Ray Gibson Show was filmed before a live Facebook audience.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hagåtña and Mezcla Dos Upper Tumon are now open for takeout and delivery services. For more information, call now at 479-2652 or 3 or Mezcla Dos at 646-6295. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with the true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine at the comfort of your own home. They take your local favorite dishes and serve them with extra flair you will only find at Mezcla. Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
Okay, so big halftime show here on Tall Tales, and we return to the CCU and their apparent pampering of their employees who commit misfeasance, or at least misfeasance or nonfeasance. Kelly Clark, colossal blunder, sits in an executive session that was illegal, takes a pay raise in the executive session. The Attorney General catches him, says he's got to pay it. Everyone has to pay back. He pays back at $25 a pay period, which means it's just a joke, and the CCU let him get away with it. Then they evaluate him for the first time since that time, and they don't want to release the evaluation, which it seems to me ought to center on that November 2018 meeting where he screwed up so badly. But they claim that they can't because of 5 GCA 10108, which I pointed out before the break, does not prohibit anything. It says, nothing in this chapter shall be construed to require disclosure of records that are personnel matters, etc. So if the CCU is not releasing those evaluations, it's not because they can't, because they can. If they're not releasing that, it's not because they can't, it's because they don't want to. So when public officials have public records that they don't want to release, what is the first thing that pops in your mind? What is the first word? I'll give you a hint. It starts with a C. Cover up. What are they covering up? What don't they want us to know? That they didn't take any action whatsoever concerning the screw up and the really poor example of customer relations. Is that why they're saying that these are not releasable, is what they said. Okay, I've been talking too much here. I'm going to take a little break and let another Joe talk, but I'm not done with the CCU here. Next item after the CCU is going to be Joe San Augustine versus separation of powers. Good afternoon, another Joe.
Hey, Bob. So it seems as though it's a political response, and they're, instead of saying that they do not want to release the information, they want to let people think that they cannot.
Exactly.
It's not accurate.
Exactly.
But really, if they wanted to be truthful, let's say that they had Wonder Woman's lasso, and we lassoed them, and say, okay, tell us the truth, and say, is it true that you cannot release information, or is it more accurate that you just don't want to? They're gonna have to say, well, I just don't want to.
Exactly.
So it's really political. Come out, and aren't these the CCU? What do they call it, a board or a
commission?
Commission. Aren't they elected?
They are indeed.
So that's something to call attention, possibly, right? Again, was it every 2 years?
There are 5 commissioners. Two go up for election every 2 years, 2 or 3. They rotate through it. Yeah. So a term is 4 years.
Yeah. So it might be something that we take a look at and see what their point of view is. Was it, you said 5 of them?
5.
So with their perspective, each of the 5, and see, who was the deciding vote, because it seems as though there has to be a deciding vote possibly, and really, I mean, it's just political. I mean, what about the legislature? Is the legislature able to pass a law which remedies some of this information being released?
One of the things that one of the statutory amendments that the Vigilance Committee sent to the legislature would address this very problem if they want to enact it.
Oh, okay. So that's something again I'm hoping that the newspapers pick up on that. Hit, Post, PDN.
Exactly. Well, the Post ran the story that's the basis for today, and I did send my FOIA. That I sent it out on Sunday night, or my notice of violation, saying, "Hey, you guys, you violated the law." And I did I did copy the Post in on that, so we'll see if the Post picks it up and runs with it, Because
I'm not sure. Okay, sorry.
Go ahead, another Joe.
I'm not sure how much I disagree with the actual pay raises. I think I want to look at their reasons for and against pay raises. If they want to take care of their own people, but like as you say, it should be made in the appropriate way, right? If you can do it right. Yeah, don't do it in secret.
Well, they have taken on a really foolish approach, and I don't know if this is more on advice of counsel, but they're saying that they can discuss the evaluations in executive session, but they know now that they can't deal with salary in executive session. So they can do the evaluation in executive session, come out in open session and deal with raises, but they can't discuss the evaluations because of 5 GCA 10108. So in other words, if the public only sees the open session of the meeting, you figure, how do they decide how much these people are worth? What do they do? Draw straws, flip coins, match social security numbers, examine the entrails of a pig? It's just stupid, for a public utility to operate like this. And it all goes back to that November 2018 meeting. And by the way, my first FOIA was denied, and it went to the commission, and 3 of the commissioners voted to release the evaluations. 2 didn't, Joey Duenas and Judy Guthertz. The other 3, Francis Santos, Simon Sanchez, and Michael Limtiaco, voted to release them.
Wow. What was the reason? Did they say the reasons they did not want to release, or is it, we cannot?
We can't, yeah, and you hit the nail on the head there. Using 5 GCA 10108, if you read it, it allows them some discretion, but they want to use it as cover. They don't want to be the bad guys. They want to say, we can't release it because, and it's just wrong. They're just
so it's not at this juncture. Obviously, it's not politically popular to give pay raises. If ever.
Well, it's amazing that so many people are attracted to decision-making positions who will do everything they possibly can to avoid making a decision.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, I got another Fred on the line here, another Joe.
Thanks for your time, about
Thanks for calling in here. Let's find out what our Fred has to say about the CCU. Go ahead, our Fred.
Hi, RAG. How you doing?
Good.
Happy Monday. So, I couldn't wait for the marijuana topic to come up, but I do want to say something on the CCU topic.
Go for it, Fred.
If anything, I deserve a raise, but I'm not getting one. I don't know why they deserve a raise. I mean, with all the power fluctuations and outages we've been having and the inconsistent power feed into our lines, you know how many appliances have burned in the homes of the people? No one's paying us for those appliances that have burned out, like refrigerators, freezers, and new ones that we have to buy. I mean, I just bought a new freezer 2 weeks ago during the overnight power fluctuation. Just 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And here we need, and I'm sure many like me are in the same boat with the appliances burning out that are 24 hours on. So what's with the raises and all? I mean, heck, I think you need a raise. I need a raise, but are we getting one? What's up with these raises?
Well, I really deserve a raise, Fred, but of course, I don't do tall tales for the money. I do it for the people.
The passion, yeah. I think all this raise talk, I think we should wait till when you deliver good power and clean water.
Well, to their credit, they decided no raises this time around. But I want to know what kind of a job these people are doing. And if they're not doing a good job, I want to see their salaries reduced. And if they're doing a good job, I don't mind seeing it increase. But I don't want this hide the ball stuff where they say, well, we can't tell you that. It's prohibited. We can't tell you that when it's just plain not true.
Exactly. I mean, if you notice your lights throughout the day, you have those brownouts, the dimming of the lights, and it goes back on. Can you just imagine that's just the lights, but can you imagine what's going on with the equipment, your home appliances and so forth? Like I said, 2 weeks ago, I had to buy a new freezer. So Guam has never had consistent, clean power going into the lines, and water is another issue.
I do want to set the record straight here, Alfred, and that is that ordinarily I'm a champion of the CCU, and I've compared what power and water are like now compared to what they were like before the CCU, and it's day and night. So they've brought about vast improvements. But that doesn't excuse, they are a public agency, and they can't be playing hide the ball and looking for cover like they're doing again. That's unforgivable,
Well, that goes without saying. Everything has to be transparent.
Yep.
Government, transparent, for the people, by the people, of the people. I think we got to remind everybody that again.
Well, you do a pretty good job, Alfred.
Yeah, I hope so. And then I know you're not on the marijuana topic, but I want to touch on it if you don't mind.
Well, I'll get there after we go on with this one. I got the most dangerous man in the room.
Ooh.
And I hate to keep him waiting. It could be.
I don't want to be around that.
Yeah, it could be dangerous. It could be hazardous to my health. Okay,
save
Alfred.
my butt on this one.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Nelson, Carl Nelson, shaken, not stirred.
Hey, Bob.
Carl.
Good afternoon.
Sir.
Yeah, I hope you don't mind if we circle the wagon around back to the subject of transparency.
Well, that's what we're talking about is transparency right now. A lack of transparency on the part of the CCU.
Well, I'd like to suggest transparency in another area of government that I think is extremely important, and I think it's important because of what we've seen the last few months in the streets of America, the violent riots and stuff like that. That is the fruit of the teachings that are being pumped into the minds of our children in our public schools. What I would like to see is the course outlines for all courses, all the way through college, and textbooks. Their textbook, you approve textbook, ISBN number, all online, so that parents who are paying for this, one way or another, parents are paying for it, either on Guam or in the States. The taxpayers who are parents and non-parents are paying for this, and a lot of them have no clue what is being done to their kids, the stuff that is being dumped into their minds. And I personally, I think that would be very helpful for any who want to see, well, what are they teaching my son or my daughter,
Did you ever watch The Sopranos when it was on TV, Carl?
No, I heard a lot about it. I heard it was great.
There was an interesting program where Tony Soprano, who was the father in the Mafia Don, was talking to his son, who was about 12 years old, about school, and wanted to see his book. And the kid gave him his book, and Tony Soprano says, "What is this? Who is this Howard Zinn guy?" So, and that's got to be almost 10 years ago. So it's going on right in front of us, that we're paying for stuff that not only we don't want, but that we hate, and we have no means of dealing with it. So, yeah, we need more vigilance. We need more vigilance committees, and everybody needs to take it upon himself to persuade government that everything they do has to be readily accessible to their customers, which is the public, right, Carl?
Exactly. And, starting in it was before the 60s. It probably goes back to the 50s and the 40s. This indoctrination started happening in our universities, and the graduates started going out into education and indoctrinating children at the public school, and that's the fruit of what we're seeing now.
That's where we are now.
Exactly. So we need to And you mentioned Howard Zinn, his book. What is it?
People's History of the United States.
Exactly, and it is basically a fat propaganda booklet or book. I mean, it's pretty massive. But if you look at it, it's got, I didn't see any note pages. When you go to a book on history by our favorite economist and social philosopher Thomas Sowell, it's dense. The back end is thick with references as to where they got their facts. Howard Zinn is not interested in that, and he came out in an interview and he said so much to that effect. He said, "I'm not interested in teaching history. I'm interested in changing the world."
Exactly. So that's where we are nowadays, Carl.
Yeah, facts don't matter. It's the issue is never the issue. The issue is always the revolution, progressing toward that utopian vision. And if you need to do whatever it takes to get closer to that alluring utopian vision, it's justified. The ends justify the means.
Every time.
Yeah, so I would like to see that personally. I would like to see transparency in education because it's affecting the most precious things we have in our lives, our children. And we're seeing the fruit of that, of parents not being aware of what their children are being taught all across America today. And, it's getting worse, and we need to get a handle on it.
Well, I'm going to work on the CCU right now. Once I fix that, then I'll go on take on the American school system. Okay, Carl?
Okay, Bob.
Good talking to you again. Yeah, so talking about the left and Howard Zinn and all that stuff, Andrew chimes in here with a little bit of left speak, and Andrew says, the misuse of pronouns causes dismay, especially when it happens to come my way. I've been urban and rural, but I've never been plural. So I'll stick with he, s'il vous plaît. Too bad. I hope Frenchie heard that one with the s'il vous plaît, right? Yeah, very good, Andrew. Okay, back to CCU again, and I've talked about this before, but it needs to be emphasized. The difference between transparency and access. Let's talk about, again, that building with the large picture window. You walk by the window, you look in it, it's transparent, you can see everything that's going on in that building. The building next door doesn't have any windows at all. It has a door. And if you open the door, you can walk inside and you can see what's going on in the building. But of course, you have to have a key for that door. So in our situation here, the key for the door is the FOIA request, the Sunshine Law request, that you stick it in the lock and turn it, and if the door opens, you can see what the government's doing. If the lock doesn't work, or if they're saying you don't have the right key, then you can't see. But even if you can get in, even if you can open the door and walk in, that's access. That's not transparency. We need to work towards transparency so that everything is in that window. So I shouldn't have to write to the CCU saying, where in the hell is the evaluation of this guy who, I don't need to go through it again. It should be on a website somewhere. I shouldn't have to go and fiddle with a lock and then see some Joey Duenas on the other side of the lock saying, oh, yeah, he's got the right key, but I've got a deadbolt here, so sorry, you can't come in, kid.
Okay, I have a question about what just happened here then. Something doesn't seem to be jiving here. So they all received raises during that last executive session.
Yeah.
And then those raises had to be rescinded.
Uh-huh.
But then during the evaluations, they just said that they revealed the general manager's evaluations, but had the evaluations during executive session for these employees again.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So why did they have to rescind the first salary?
Because they talked about salary in executive session. And
only because of salary, not
Yeah.
evaluation.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Second thing here, too, is what exactly is the definition of personal matter? Did they say that? Because you also asked for minutes of a meeting.
Yeah. Well, the statute says personnel or similar files, the disclosure of which would constitute an unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. I don't see a personal privacy dimension here at all.
Me as well.
Personal privacy. Of course, first of all, we don't have a definition of privacy in statute. And everybody who listens to Tall Tales know it ain't in the Constitution. Only people on the far left can find it when they want to deal with Herman marrying Henry. Right?
It's in pencil.
Yeah. So to me, personal means to you, not to an institution. So as an example, if I sent a FOIA in and I said, I want to know the names of every member, every employee of the CCU whose wife is pregnant, that would be an invasion of personal privacy, right? If I sent an email and I said, I want to know the names of every employee who worked overtime on the 4th of July, that's not personal privacy. If I said I want to see the performance evaluation of these people who are at-will people, that's not personal privacy. But again, another Joe hit the nail right on the head. They're looking for cover. They don't want to give it. They don't want to let us have it, and they want to say, well, we can't because the law. And what they ought to be saying is the law says. The law doesn't prohibit us from doing it, but we don't have to, so we're not going to because. And then have some good reasons in there because. But they don't think they have to have the because they think we're not smart enough to read the statute. And, of course, you'll remember my 3 rules of statutory construction, Jose. Rule number 1, read the statute. Rule number 2, read the statute. Can you figure out rule number 3?
Got to read the statute.
There you go. Is it time for the 7th inning stretch?
It's time.
Let's go.
All right.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Buying a house, apartment, or condo? Selling your home or property? Or maybe you're renting a house, apartment, or condo on Guam. Whatever your real estate needs are, you can count on the professionals at Horizon Properties to take care of you. Call Horizon Properties at 646-7616 or 777-7792. You can also visit them at horizonproperties.com or follow them on Facebook at Horizon Properties Guam. Maria Miller and the professionals at Horizon Properties. All you need to know in real estate.
Seventh inning stretch, Wrigley Field in Chicago. Nobody in the stands, nobody on the field. We very reluctantly catch a plane back to the historic studios of The Point here in Upper Tumum on Marine Corps Drive, and I return to Tall Tales versus the CCU. And once again, I have augmentation from the poet laureate of Tall Tales, none other than Andrew Camacho, who says, there was an attorney named Clark whose bite was worse than his bark. this brilliant Esquire needs to retire if he continues shooting in the dark. Very good. Very good, Andrew. So, I'm going to leave this. I'm not going to leave this for the whole week. I'll be coming back to this, but CCU, I know you're out there monitoring this in the Gloria B. Nelson building. Get with the program. You know, why are you playing hide the ball and apparently pandering to your employees who commit serious breaches of duty, or, well, maybe not breaches of duty, but at least misfeasance or nonfeasance, and you are apparently covering for them with an excuse that doesn't make sense, that you can't release these papers. So, CCU, the ball's in your court. And let's see, I've got another Joe is back for another ride on the Ferris wheel. Go for it, another Joe.
Well, the other thing, Uncle Bob, is didn't they vote on it, or was just approved by the
Well, that's another story. Okay, I sent my FOIA to all 5 of the commissioners at their own email addresses. And I got a response from Joey Duenas, not from the 5, but from Joey Duenas. And he doesn't indicate that he is the voice of the 5. He just denies my request. And that's one of the things that I wrote back. You guys are in violation.
So presumably they know. They know about this, and they left it to Mr. Duenas to respond for them.
Well, or else he just stepped in and took it upon himself to respond. But I pointed out, another Joe, that no single member of a commission or board can act on behalf of the whole board. It just doesn't work that way.
I'll tell you what.
And you know, if we just wanted one person to make arbitrary, capricious, and wrong decisions, we wouldn't need 5 commissioners at $1,000 a month to do it. So that's another thing that's wrong with the decision, because as I pointed out here, there's no statutory bar. It's discretionary upon the commission. So when they got my FOIA, they should have met and they should have said, we're going to do this or we're not going to do it. They should have said we're going to do it like they did the last time. They got it right once before. You know, then you get into, well, who knows what and who's doing what on his own without any input from the commission. Is this just Joey Duenas' idea, the one who voted against releasing the evaluations last time? Is it just him speaking and kind of stealing the march from the commission? See what I mean, another Joe?
Yeah, so I wonder if these commissioners, I know that's their title, the commission, I wonder if they would be willing to go on record on you know, any media program, yours, PNC, PN, KUM, any of these media forums, and answer some of these questions. Why wouldn't they, right? Transparency.
Well, their means of answer, it's kind of like the legislature, and I've preached this sermon before. Senators communicate with their constituents by means of the bills that they introduce, not by the press releases that they do, not by the clever things that they say at the dead or the other things, by the bills they introduce. Commissioners hold meetings, properly called and noticed meetings where there's a quorum present. That's where they answer questions and do things. And that's what they should have done with this. And
what should happen is
had they done that, there would have been media coverage, et cetera. I wouldn't be sitting here saying, did Joey Duenas just do this because he thought he knew the answer, or why?
So they should have meetings, and the media should show up and ask these questions of the commissioners during the meetings. Does that sound right?
Well, not during the meeting. You know, if someone sends a sunshine law request to the commission then the commission should have a properly called meeting and discuss that that demand during the meeting and make their decision. And the media covers these things, and besides that, they do videos of it and post it on the public auditor's website, which doesn't work nowadays, but that's another story.
And of course, there is a senator that chairs a committee that oversees this commission, right?
Well, sort of. That would be Clint.
So the legislature, the senator, and the legislature could request answers of this commission in theory, right?
Well, they could, but I can too. And my request should have as much weight as anybody else's because I am a ratepayer. It's guys like me that whole Guam Waterworks Authority is set up to serve. I'm a customer.
Yes. Well, I'm just saying they could back you up. That's what I'm saying.
I don't need any stinking backup. Here's my badge.
Well, I mean, Bob, we could all, was that Beatles song? We all could get along with a little help of our friends sometimes. But anyway, you're going to go into transparency, and it carries on across the board, facts and details, including, they keep beating around the bush and doing this legal speak that doesn't answer the question, but they want to give the impression that they do. I mean, right now, I hope I'm not going too off topic, but we've got an election ongoing runoff in Georgia, and the president say, hey, we got to pay attention to this because it could affect the overall the influence on our nation due to the Democrats getting a majority in the Senate. So we need to pay attention to this and give our support to this runoff election in January. And I'm wondering, I haven't heard anything from our Republicans leaders here in Guam saying, hey, let's be supportive of these Republicans in Georgia because it's overall going to affect us here in Guam and nationwide. But,
let's move to Georgia.
Well, I mean, that's what Democrats would say, right?
Yeah.
Actually, they call that, I forget the word for it. I think it's
illegal.
They move in order to have movements. I mean, they become residents in certain jurisdictions in order to create these movements that are pro-Democrat, far left Democrat, and this has been in the news, on and off through the years, where like for the example I think I'd bring up would be the pro-life issues, is some of the faith issues, right? Where like, oh no, you got to have a separation of church and state, and you can't have these faith issues unless, of course, they're Muslim. Then you have to let them have places to wash their feet and pray 5 times a day. Hey, my elders basically pray more or less 5 times a day too, but they're Christian. Why can't we have some deference to other faiths? But they target Christians. Anything they can do, they target saying, "Hey, Merry," you say Merry Christmas. No, you can't say Merry Christmas. Oh no, you can't be pro-life.
I don't want to hear anybody coming on Tall Tales wishing anybody happy holidays. Another Joe.
I just want to see transparency across the board.
So winding it up here, with what that runoff coming up, that will the control of the Senate is riding on that runoff. I got to confess, I've got Georgia on my mind.
There you go. Okay, thanks for talking about. Appreciate it.
Make a nice title for a song, wouldn't it? Georgia on my mind. Okay, so let's put the CCU aside at least for now. We'll probably be coming back to it. And we'll say you got a call.
I'm not able to answer. I don't know if you're able to answer on that. Well, looks like they hung up.
Phone problems?
Yeah, I think we might be having phone problems here. Let me do a real quick reset.
Yeah, okay. Or just tell the guy to call again, and I'll try to. If you can call again, caller, I'll pick up the phone here in the control in my studio and see if that works. Here it comes. Hello.
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 Hi. Good afternoon. Hello.
Yeah, is it drive-through Jack?
Yeah.
Can you hear him?
Hello.
Okay. Okay.
Hello.
Drive-through Jack. Are you there?
How are you, Bob?
Okay.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. How are you doing this afternoon?
I think,
Bob?
I think that screening device that Jose put on the telephone caught you this time. But you somehow managed to get through it.
Another Joe broke us.
Well, I just wanted to wish you a happy second week of Advent here, and I hope that you're preparing yourself for Christmas. But it's a happy Advent. I want to wish you a happy Advent. And I just wanted to ring in. I heard Joe speak about the runoff in Georgia. I was wondering. I wanted to ask this question for a while, but during the general election, I was receiving phone calls from Georgia. I was wondering if anybody else was having that problem. It's from the Georgia area code, and during the day before the election here in Guam, I was inundated with area code phone calls from Georgia, and I just I don't answer it because I don't know anybody from there, but I did look up the number, and then it was coming from Georgia. So
Well, it could be that people are kind of caught inside and are using the phone because it's a rainy night in Georgia.
Well, anyways,
Or maybe I've still got Georgia on my mind.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of, I just wanted to remind you always your favorite Latin phrase, not Latin, but Latin phrase. What is it called? Oh yeah, Sonny Bono.
Cui bono.
Sonny Bono. How does share benefit?
That's pretty good. Pretty good.
So, anyways, I hope that people remember, or I hope that they can look it up themselves. And it might be just coincidence. But it seems that before every election, it doesn't matter whether it's general. I mean, every election doesn't matter whether it's a gubernatorial election or just a senatorial election. I wonder if anybody ever notices that the CCU always manages to lower the rates, and then after the election, they raise the rates. I just don't know if I'm the only one that caught on to that.
Well, maybe we should have more. We should have more elections than drive-through Jack.
But no, it's always after the elections. They raise the rates. It's like February. Maybe it's cyclical, or it comes in cycles, or maybe it's just a coincidence. But they didn't raise it this time because we're in the middle of a pandemic and everybody's strapped for cash. But if business was normal, I can guarantee you they would have raised the rates right after the election. But I just wanted to call and to wish everybody a happy Advent. I could talk months about the CCU, but it's Advent time, and it's time for preparation. I just want to wish everybody a happy Advent, and,
Okay, we got it, Jack.
All right, and to keep in mind that, it is the season, and just to be calm, cool, and collective, and be thankful. But anyways, Bob, I'll catch you on the other end.
Okay, nice talking to you again, Jack.
All right.
So, let's see, I was about to leave the CCU, but I noticed another work product here from the poet laureate who says, Clark seems to be rather suspicious. Some comments he finds quite malicious. But Clark doesn't know that on Bob's Tall Tales show, he's never been cruel or pernicious. Very good, Andrew. You really captured the very essence of Tall Tales. Okay, putting aside the CCU for a moment, I come to Joe San Augustine versus separation of powers. And this appeared in a story in the Daily News. Lawmakers reject bill to end lifetime governor pensions. Former governors and lieutenant governors will continue to receive a lifetime pension check. Lawmakers voted against placing Senator Tello Titegui's Bill 6 on the agenda for this month's session, which will be the last session for the current legislature. Titegui's bill would have eliminated the automatic retirement benefits paid to former governors, lieutenant governors, and their survivors. So the way the statute works is that a governor or lieutenant governor is entitled to, well, I know if entitled, it will be paid a retirement annuity of half his salary on the last day of his job or their job. And when the lieutenant governor or governor dies, his spouse will get an amount equal to 20% of his final pay. But all governors, although all governors would be eligible, all governors don't take it because the statute allows a governor to elect his regular GovGuam annuity, which would be the product of his paying in during the time he was a government employee. So there are some people who served as governor, lieutenant governor, who may have had enough service in under the old plan that their service retirement is more than half of their final pay as governor. Perhaps Ray Tenorio, who spent a long time on the government payroll. Carl Gutierrez, I think I've even read that he opted for his service retirement rather than his government retirement. But others who aren't entitled to the service retirement are entitled to what amounts to half pay for the rest of their lives. And as I mentioned during the program notes, Tello repealed all of the laws that would require the payment of those pensions. So if her bill had become law in the form in which it was introduced, those retirements would be over. And she saw it as an economy measure. It certainly save us a lot of money. And I have to ask what the policy base is underlying the idea that we should pay former governors and lieutenant governors half pay for the rest of their lives. I'm going to take a short break and I'll come back to that.
Happy Day. I'm Chelsea Nicholas, and I'm the co-chair for this year's G is for Giving, as well as a proud alumna of the University of Guam. G is for Giving is an annual campaign that kicks off on the Tuesday following Thanksgiving and runs through the end of the year. Known as Giving Tuesday, it is an international day of giving, and this year's theme is Weaving Community. On Guam, we know a little something about weaving community, as we're all intertwined and interconnected in the spirit of Inafamaldik. When one of us thrives, the island thrives. This is why I support G is for Giving's mission to support scholarships, programs, and research. As an alumna, I know how difficult it is to balance going to school and worrying about how you're going to pay for school. In these uncertain times, students are even more at risk because of economic hardship beyond their control. G is for Giving aims to bridge that gap and take away at least some of the burden. For more information on how you can give, visit give.uog.edu or call the UOG Endowment Foundation at 735-2957. Have a happy and safe holiday.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
Home stretch. Here we go. On the home stretch, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. Means I got about 8 more minutes of Tall Tales here to wrap up a Monday, my favorite day of the week. But we still got 4 whole days of Tall Tales coming up, we'll see. Okay, so talking about Bill 1 here, that if it were to become law, would mean that the day that it became law, that is the day that the governor signs it, or the day that the legislature overrides it, or the 10th day after it was submitted to the governor and he doesn't take any action on it, it becomes law, and that would be the end of those half-time for life pensions. So I question the policy base that those half-time for life pensions foster. Ordinarily, if you are hiring people to do a job, you pay enough money to attract the kind of people that you want to do the job. So if you're going to hire doctors, you have to pay doctors more than you pay the custodian in the clinic. And if you're having a hard time hiring enough doctors to run your clinic, then it'll come home to you pretty quickly. We've got to pay more money for our doctors. So wages tend to rise to the level necessary to provide the employment necessary for the company, private company, to make a profit. Well, governments don't make profits, but some of the same considerations are still applicable. So if we were having a hard time finding people that wanted to be governor, I could see enhancing the salary of the governor, providing some more fringe benefits for the governor. We've never had a hard time finding people that want to be governor. There's no scarcity there. And my suspicion is that even if we cut the salary of our governors and lieutenant governors, there would be no scarcity of people who wanted to be governor and lieutenant governor for reasons that go beyond a paycheck. So then, if there's any sense in that reasoning, why are we enticing people to run for governor so that at the end of one 4-year term, which pays $90,000, the governor is going to draw a $45,000 check for the rest of his life? Fiscally, it makes no sense. Policy-wise, it makes no sense whatsoever. How we ever backed into that, I don't know. Now, I have a kind of a deep suspicion, and that goes back to President Grant, who was president after the Civil War. The hero of the Civil War. You know, if anybody would take credit for winning the battle, for winning the war, it would be U.S. Grant.
And he's the one that's buried in Grant's tomb.
He is indeed, which a lot of guys get wrong on their history. You know, kids fumble around with history so much that I was helping this kid the other day with his history, and I gave him some quiz questions. I said, which came first, World War I or World War II? He couldn't handle that one. He couldn't handle that one very well.
Yikes.
Name me a combatant in the French and Indian War. That was a little bit too hard for him, too. Yeah. To whom does the Washington Monument evoke memories? Lincoln? And then the Grant's tomb one, that's just too hard for most kids. So, yeah. So, Grant had, in fact, I think at the end of his presidency, had some really rough times. And I think there was some feeling that no one should go from president of the United States to being a public charge. It would be an embarrassment for the country. You wouldn't want the governor of Guam, you know, on the day that his replacement is sworn in, to be hanging around down at the Paseo with a plastic bottle standing out in the island in the road panhandling. The chances of that happening are so remote. It's just not even worth considering, because everyone who's run for governor has been pretty skillful at one way or another amassing some personal wealth. I'm not going to go any farther than that.
There's an asterisk there.
Yeah, I'm just not going to go into that any farther. So why we have to keep somebody on half-time for the rest of his life, even in good times, always want a question that I could never come up with a very satisfactory answer for. These are not good times. So anyhow, when Tello's bill at the Rules Committee did not want to put it on the agenda. And, of course, the Democrats control the Rules Committee, and the personal aspects of this are pretty easy to see. Well, Lou is the governor. Lou is going to get that when she gets out. She really needs it. You know? Yeah, she really needs that $45,000 a year. So if we were to even entertain Tello's Bill 6, even if we don't pass it, she might not like it. So better just to keep it out of here. We don't need Bill 6. We'll just keep paying that. And I suppose one of the senators in the Rules Committee invoked the closing line to any such discussions, which goes like this: I don't want to take those pensions away from any of those governors. I want them to keep receiving those pensions. It's the least we can do. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to come back. Rob Hawk, I'm going to come back to this tomorrow. So, the end of another perfect day on Tall Tales. 4 more days this week. We'll be back. Even though tomorrow is a Government of Guam holiday, we're going to be here. So, see you at 1600 tomorrow.
Is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Debate drama. I'm Mary Corsetti, Fox News. Incumbent Republican Senator Kelly Loeffler went head-to-head with Democratic challenger Raphael Warnock on Sunday. Warnock criticizing Loeffler's health care plan.
She can't explain why she wants to take away people's health care. She knows that junk health care plan that she rolled out has a loophole in it big enough to drive a Mack truck through. She can't explain that, and so she's trying to misrepresent my record.